Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Hi,
Dice Jailers. I'm Jordan,
I'm Bjorn.
and this week we are going to talk about combat, specifically
Yes.
how we can speed it up and make it not take 5 million years.
Just keep the game moving in general. And some of this advice will go from combat into overall roleplay in particular, or storytelling if you're a dungeon master, because
Yep.
games can get bogged down.
But before we go into that,
Mhm.
announcements.
Yes, big announcement. So we have coming up our next one shot.
Yay, yay.
It will be the first Saturday in June. I believe that's the 5th,
Something like
if
that.
I'm right. And standard time for us, 5 p.m. And
Mm-hmm.
this one we're going to affectionately call "Oops, All Bards." As yeah, it's going to be an
I
all
love it.
bard one shot. The official title of it is called "Like a Bard Out of Hell," and people can decide what they think that means. You'll probably be partially right. You'll probably be partially wrong. But all of our players, their characters have to be bards. We're allowing multi-classing for this. It's level 6 bards, so they can
Mm-hmm.
have up to 3 levels in something else because they have to have a minimum of 3 levels of bard. This will be silly. This will be fun. This will be ridiculous because everyone is going to be a bard.
Yeah. I've already committed to being a full bard.
Yeah. You're not the only one. I've talked to at least one other person who is going full bard for it for two reasons. One, fifth level is where you get those yummy third level spells. And once you're already
Mm-hmm.
at fifth level, you get your next bard college feature at six. So I'm imagining we're going to see very little multi-classing here. Although I do know one person is multi-classing for a fact, and that's very exciting.
Nice. Uh, but yeah, that's gonna be super dope.
Yeah, and I highly recommend people tune in for that one because one bard in a party is delightful. A party full of bards is nothing but ridiculousness.
Yep. And just because I'm looking over at my other screen, just for all of you watching, yes, our internet is being slow for some weird reason that it really shouldn't be. So if you're seeing things like being a little choppy, breaking up a little bit, that's not you, most likely. It's us
Yep.
because our internet hates me. Uh, it is what it is. Uh, yeah.
But
Any other
if you
announcements,
do
bud?
all that like, subscribe, share, and encourage others, and do all that, and comment and get others to comment, so that we can get, say, Twitch Daddy money, we will upgrade our internet.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that'd be
Yep.
so great. Uh,
So in a way, the speed of the internet is up to the viewers.
that's a terrifying, terrifying thought.
It is, isn't it?
uh, yeah. So what's
But
been going on with you in the week?
I mean, that's been kind of the big thing is working on our next one shot, making sure I have stuff good to go for that. And otherwise, not a whole heck of a lot. Oh, did a little bit of writing for our next campaign, which I'm always going to be happy to remind people is going to be coming up, since we are going to attempt to have some semblance of that hitting the internet for others to digest. We'll see how
Hmm.
that all goes. Read over the new Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft.
It's
That
so
is
good.
that is a beautiful, beautiful book. I would recommend any dungeon master who uses any aspect of horror in their games pick that book up. It
Oh yeah.
it doesn't have any stat blocks for the most part. And there are a few monsters at the end, but you're not going to get like big like boss type monsters out of it for the most part. Like Strahd von Zarovich is mentioned in it. It doesn't have a stat block for Strahd, and not just because he already exists in Curse of Strahd. It talks about
Hmm.
him in his purpose of being a dread lord and domains of dread, how to create one, and how to create your own dread
Hmm.
lord. And it goes over a lot of domains, a lot of types of horror, and it really discusses how to run horror where everyone enjoys it and you're scaring the characters, not the players. Unless the players want to
Yeah.
be scared. That's a different conversation.
It's such a good book.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's one of my favorite books that WotC has released.
Oh yeah. It's
What about you?
it's so fun.
What's your week been like?
So my week, I've been getting ready for camp. To explain, a theater group up here in Seattle that also has other branches, actually internationally, which is still cool. I've got to go do 1448 Leicester at some point. But the group is 1448, and they're doing 1448 camp this weekend, which is just a virtual fake summer camp for a bunch of actors that have been around 1448 before. Uh, and the part that's for the public is the camp talent show, which, if I remember correctly, is 8 p.m. on Saturday.
Nice.
All of that information is online. If you just look up the 1448 project, you'll be able to find all the information about 1448 camp. I still haven't decided what I'm going to do to try to be in the talent show, but I'm going to do something.
It's this
I just
weekend.
have to pick.
It's
Yeah,
it's this
no,
weekend.
I have till tomorrow morning to decide, because that's when talent show tryouts are. I know.
Much like this show, just gonna wing it as you go.
Oh, 100, that is my life, my dude.
I'm aware. I'm fully aware. I'm just making sure our audience is also
Yup.
aware.
I am a trickster god, which means I plan nothing.
Sure,
Um and I am the happy side of the coin to Taliesin. Uh
sure. Your alignment is chaotic YOLO.
yeah. I mean, but when you're a trickster god, you're immortal. So,
Sure. Well,
uh
again, with once, right?
yeah,
Because you're
it's just
immortal.
one really long one. But yeah, it's really just I've just been getting excited for 1448 camp. Uh
And
cuz
also, with what you just said, all our viewers should go and type in one really long one, turn off that safe search, and just Google image search that. See what you get.
no, absolutely don't do that. Uh don't. It would be hilarious, but don't.
Yeah.
Do it and tag our Instagram.
Just yeah, why not?
Hashtag hashtag really long one.
Yeah.
That
Hashtag
couldn't
really
go
long.
badly at all.
Not at all. Not at all. Who knows? Might get us some traffic.
I guess. Oh, I don't think that's good.
I don't know.
But yeah, getting ready for 1448 camp has basically been
Nice.
my whole week because I don't know what to expect. Like I have the schedule and like I understand how the program works, and chaotic YOLO is me. I'm the chaotic YOLO.
Yep.
Yeah. Uh,
But that's the
but
thing. When you have that chaos and you're like you and you do it often, you just know how to embrace it. Honestly, all jokes aside, I think whatever you come up with is going to be just fan-damn-tastic or amusing, if nothing else.
Well, see, I thought of like doing a monologue as Bandit, my
Sure.
character in your game,
So I
or
made this thing.
exactly. But that might be just too much of an in joke to be
Yeah.
entertaining for anyone else. I thought about just telling the story of our campaign, but jumping
Sure.
between my impressions of our different characters, which could be
Ooh.
fun. My best is our Hob. But
I don't
we'll
know if I
see.
want to see your impression of my various NPCs, or should I say my three voices.
Yep. Well, you know I can't do a Scottish; it always turns Irish. So,
Neither can I, but I do it anyways.
but yeah. So it's just been anticipation for camp and
Fun.
trying to keep myself together because I'm really excited because it's the first like 1448 is one of the most entertaining things that I've ever done as an actor, and it's
Sure.
been a long time since there's been any of it, and it's so much fun, and I'm so excited. It's also been forever since I've been to camp,
Sure.
not as a camp counselor. So pretending to be at camp will be super fun too. But yeah, it's just I've been just getting ready for that. Uh, and I've been trying to organize myself and my life so that I can
Sure.
do things more efficiently, so that my regular day to day doesn't take me forever just to get up and going.
Sure. Like there,
Um,
you can have what should be a really simple, straightforward task. It could be very obvious what you should do in this moment, but for some damn reason,
it just
what
takes
should take
forever.
yeah, could take 6 seconds, we'll say, takes 45 damn minutes.
Yep, just like combat in tabletop games.
Oh man. Yeah. So D&D is a mixture of two things more than anything else, and that's role play and combat. You know,
Yep,
there are puzzles sometimes, and you might get skill challenges sometimes. Frankly, those are pretty rare, mostly because there aren't good guides to teach people how to do it.
not really. You
And
just kind of have to make those other things up. So you spend a lot of time fighting.
you do, because the nice thing is there are numerous books full of monsters. As a matter of fact, one of the three essential books for being a dungeon master is a manual full of monsters, a
Yeah,
monster manual, if you will. And yeah, it's essential. You roll for initiative, you fight, one side wins. And I think few things make a game of D&D more boring than when it gets to somebody's turn and they take bloody forever to take their turn. Now,
could you say that one more time because it really chopped out?
yeah, I think when you're playing D&D, few things are worse than when it takes somebody in combat just bloody forever to take their turn. It kills the fun. I've experienced it. I'm sure you've experienced it,
Quite a few times.
and and it's annoying. And so, kind of what we want to talk about is a how to speed things up, and b what your expectation of yourself at the table should be, whether you're a player or a dungeon master, because DMs, we are equally guilty
Oh
of
yeah,
grinding combat to a halt. Um, but I kind of want to talk about the player side first.
it's definitely going to be easier to start talking about things you can do as a player,
Yep,
because they are in general simpler than things you can do as a DM to speed up combat.
they are. And they can, because there are more players than DMs, if all the players are getting through their turns more quickly, it's going to speed up a round of combat
Oh,
overall.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Like, uh, I've heard people say that one round of combat, depending on the number of players, could take about an hour. I think that's on the long side of things.
Oh God, what?
I, yeah, that's what and I go, to me, that's too long. I think one
Shit.
round of combat, assuming 4 players and one DM, I think you should be able to get through that in 20 minutes.
That
I,
still sounds like too much for me.
well, that's 4 minutes per person.
Fair. I don't know. I just know I as a person try to keep my rounds as short as possible.
As do I.
So that still feels like a long time, although it probably isn't.
So when your turn is coming around, we'll say for the sake of discussion, um, I'm going to use your character in our campaign as an example for this, and we're going to assume you've rolled high for initiative, and we're going to assume you've rolled low for initiative. Now you have a good
Mm-hmm.
initiative bonus, so
Yep.
even if you roll low, you still get a good spot in
Well, like
initiative.
that character, his initiative is like he's got a +9 of initiative mod,
Yep,
plus he's got advantage on initiative, so
exactly.
going last is few and far between.
Right. So let's assume we've rolled for initiative. You roll a natural 20, 29. You're going first. How do you approach that first turn and make sure you go quickly?
I mean, it's useful because this character that we're talking about is mostly not a spellcaster in combat.
Sure.
Uh, so because I know my character, I know a few things that are just going to happen first, which is usually get close and hit.
Right. So you'll close the distance, you'll swing your blades, and I've noticed because of your multi-classing, you do have some spells. If for some damn reason, which is rare because you have a magic item that gives you a good fly speed, if
Mm-hmm.
you can't close the distance, I've noticed you'll move, close most of that distance, and then oftentimes you'll cast a spell,
Mm-hmm.
planning to then attack the next time.
Or do
Let's
a
just
ranged attack.
Yeah. Now let's just say you rolled lower. You're going in the middle of initiative order.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do during other people's turns to help A, keep you engaged, and B, help motivate what you're going to do on your turn so you don't take so long?
Well, I'm constantly looking at the battle map and looking, or if we don't have a battle map, just paying attention to which enemies have been hit, which enemies haven't been hit, if an enemy gets finished off, as well as I am playing chess like 4 turns ahead,
Right.
where I'm like, okay, if this happens in this, if this happens in this, if this happens in this, and if there's a spell that I know I'm probably going to use, I am looking up that spell before I am going, so that I
Thank
can
you.
very quickly just, all right, I've got, I'll use, I can't remember off the top of my head the name of the spell, a warding bond.
Yeah.
Say I'm planning to use warding bond, so I make sure that I've familiarized myself with warding bond, so when my turn comes up, I can go, all right, bandit's gonna run up and tap Furby on the shoulder and cast warding bond, and then
Which
if Casey asks, I can rattle off what warding bond is because I've
precisely.
just read it.
And I think the most important thing you touched on there is you look up your spell before your turn. And
Mm-hmm.
that can be harder if you're a spellcaster who somehow went first. It can happen. There are certain wizard classes that get a really good initiative bonus where you could go early if not first. It can
Mm-hmm.
happen. And as someone who's playing a wizard right now in Icewind Dale, I kind each day that we finish a long rest, when I'm choosing my spells and preparing them, I put thought into what am I going to do if we run into a group of enemies? What am I going to do if we run into one powerful enemy? What am I going to do if I'm late in initiative and our barbarian has already gone into melee?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to decide. Um, if it's a group of enemies and our barbarian's up in melee, now he's a totem barbarian. I know he can half fire damage normally, and if he seeds a dex save, he'll take a quarter fire damage. So then I have
Yeah.
to go, is it worth injuring my ally to damage all these things? If I deem it's worth a little bit of friendly fire for all the hurt I can lay down, I do it anyways. If it's not worth
Yeah.
it, then I come up with plans B, C, and D. But again, I'm planning what I'm going to do the initial round in combat before we've even run into anything.
Oh yeah.
And
And I think that's really the biggest thing as a player that you can do to speed up combat is simply plan. Like and I know there's a million and a half different things that can happen in combat that change your plan, but if you have a base idea of what you're going to do on your turn, even if something else happens to affect it, changing what you're going to do is much better than, oh, I didn't have a plan at all, let me figure out what I'm going to do.
right,
As well as also just paying attention to what's going on in the combat
I
speeds
agree.
things up so well.
The
Because there's
worst thing. Go ahead.
yeah there is one particular person that I have played with who I will not name a name, and I love this person to death. But this motherfucker does not pay attention in combat to save their own ass. Like every time that it came around to their turn, it was okay, wait. So I'm gonna hit the one on the left. That one's been dead for 2 people. And just like completely checked out unless it was their turn.
I think one of the worst things a player can do when it gets to their turn in combat is ask the infuriating question, wait, so what's going on?
Mm.
The only time that is okay with me is the first round and the party has been surprised by something and they're going, hang on, what's happening? I know we're
Yeah.
underground, but we're being attacked by what? That's fine. Asking the DM for clarification. But if it happens round after round, combat after combat, um, there is a certain level of D&D where we talked about immersion last week. We
Mm-hmm.
just talked about it. Some people play it to lose themselves in the game and just immerse themselves. And nothing jerks you out of that more than having to explain to somebody that you're sitting at the table with what's going on in a situation where they should know it.
Right. And another thing that you can do as a player, besides just simply pay attention and plan, if you know that you're going to have, like my character Bandit, who when I'm doing my full round of attacks, I'm doing 3 strikes. One thing, of course, talk to your DM about this. But a
Yeah,
thing that I do to help speed that up is I roll all 3, and I just tell the DM what the lowest is.
it's very helpful for me because
Mm-hmm.
if the lowest hits, I can go, yep, everything hits.
And so that way I can just start rolling damage. And it only shaves off a little bit of time, but it shaves off a little bit of time. It's nice to get just that little bit of like, okay, we don't have to go through like, okay, does a 22 hit? No. Does a 23 hit? No. So a 25 hits. Great.
and and also, this comes into the next bit of how you can speed up but also make combat more engaging, especially if you're a martial melee character. Kind of feel out how you're going to roll for attacks and just stay consistent with how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Conversely, back when I was playing my barbarian, because I would always use reckless attack, which is rolling with advantage. um, I didn't roll all of them and then say what the lowest was, but I was very quick about it. I would roll all my attacks before I rolled any damage, even
Mm-hmm.
though I knew there was a chance I could do so much damage in one strike that I could technically attack the next enemy. Most of the time, to me, it's worth keeping the combat going to not have to showboat a little bit, unless I
Mm-hmm.
needed to. But again, I would roll with advantage. Okay, I got this. DM. Yep, that's it. Okay, next attack. I roll this advantage. Yep, that's it. Okay, time for the damage. And usually, I would just roll all the damage, add it all up, and give the total result. And I'd be like, okay, for both attacks, it adds all up to this. The
Mm-hmm.
only times I wouldn't do that is if it was like a really intense climactic battle and it was okay, here's how much this hit does. Now for my next one. And that was, a barbarian using Great Weapon Master and all those things, hitting
Yeah.
for stupid amounts of damage. And it was a climactic battle. Most of your
Mm-hmm.
battles aren't climactic. Just keep it
Oh,
moving.
another thing as a player that will keep things moving that a lot of people have. I've seen a lot of people have this like grump about it or like, oh, I don't want to be the dumb one. Like if you're playing a wizard and you know you're using a high level fireball and you know you don't have enough dice to just like blah. And even if you do have enough dice to just blah, bring a calculator. There's
Yeah,
one on your phone. Just
yeah,
use it. I don't know why people have such like this negative stigma against using a calculator during D&D. Use it. It's great. You punch in numbers and you know you get it right.
exactly. The only thing I will say, conversely on that, I think if you're a DM and you're rolling that, double fistful of dice, I say don't have a calculator. And I only say that because here's why. Because as your players, here you go, okay, 10, 16, 20, 25, 28, 30, 30. As your players hear the numbers going up, they just start going, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. So
That's
as,
fair.
as a DM, you can use it as a narrative thing. Um,
Yeah, but that's a
so
DM and we're talking about players now.
exactly. Yeah. But yeah, anything you can do to move it along. Because again, like Jordan said, if you're rolling this absolute just metric crap ton of dice, a calculator is really nice to have there to, especially you can see all the numbers. And if you look at
Hmm.
that result and it seems a little low to you or a little high, because I know I've had that for myself,
Yep.
where I go, wait a minute, how did I do 50 damage on 6d6? That's mathematically impossible.
Right. You're just
And
like,
I go
hold
back,
on.
yeah, you
Ah,
can see what the numbers were you plugged in, so you know what they all are. It's a
yeah.
good way
And
to be.
I do you understand why? Because I have no clue why people are so against like bringing a calculator to the table.
I don't know what it is. Like you said, it's this weird stigma where people feel like it's going to make them look dumb. I'm like, I don't know. I think it makes you look efficient. Like
You're using a tool.
you want to get the number right.
Like, you know how humans have advanced to where we are now? The use of tools.
Yeah,
Use your
and the thing
damn
is,
tools.
when you use the calculator, again, if you enter the dice one at a time, which is what I would do, you can see the individual results there in your math on the screen. So if you
Hmm.
do need to double check, you can glance and double check.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you are, again, we'll say something as simple as 8d6 for a fireball. If you get to that sixth die and you're like, wait a minute, I lost count. Now you got to start over.
Yeah. Like, oh
The
wait,
other
was
thing,
that second one a 2 or a
yeah,
1?
the
And if you
other
don't
thing,
have 8d6s, it can be a nightmare to just like drop it and to like, roll that one and just remember, okay, that was a 6 and
yeah,
that's a 3 and that's a 2. Like,
yeah.
plug it into something.
And I would say on that note, as far as speeding things along, D&D Beyond, which many people have access to and many people
Mhm.
use, they now have digital dice rollers for the spells. And I love rolling physical dice. I won't use the digital roller unless it's too difficult for me to have that many dice to roll.
Yeah.
Now, some people some people only bring a couple sets of dice with them,
Yeah.
and maybe you cast that spell that's 8d6, and for some damn reason you have your one Chessex set, you only have the one
That's fine.
d6. Don't roll that d6 8 times and add it all up.
Bring Yep. There's so many different free phone apps that are digital dice
Yeah,
rollers, like, and there are plenty of them that you can enter in quick macros. So if you
yeah,
just take a little bit of time before the session, pull up your dice roller app and be like, all right, I know my character can cast a fireball that's going to need that many d6s. So let me just put in a macro for that fireball now. So even when you open up that dice app, you can just click fireball and
yeah.
there it goes.
it it saves time. Yes, it's not quite as rewarding as grabbing that fist and shaking them and hearing.
Yeah.
Yes, that is more fun. But I will say I would rather use the app than roll a 1d6 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'd agree with that. Although also me as a DM, I would just be loaning you dice
yep,
because I am a dice goblin and I have too many.
yeah. But here, just use these. This will
Yeah.
just do
Just
it, please.
just
Spare us
grab my
all.
Crown Royal bag of dice and
Spare us all. Yeah, I
so
think what a lot of it really comes down to is knowing what your character can do and who your character is. Like,
yeah,
especially once you get a few levels into a game, you should know how they're going to act in combat.
absolutely.
Are they if you're playing a rogue, you know, okay, I'm going to charge in, try and get some sneak attack out of this, or I'm going to find something to hide behind and let the others keep the big things off my squishy ass.
Yeah. And I think a lot of those things as a player are going to help keep you speeding up combat. Just planning what you're going to do, knowing your character, knowing what your character would do personality wise, using tools. You're golden for speeding up your games. And like you do even like one of these things that we've just mentioned as a player, and you will exponentially speed up your games.
And there's actually a way as a player, I believe, to speed up combat or make it feel sped up while actually adding a little bit of time. And that is describing your turn very dynamically.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the only reason I would lengthen a turn is
yeah,
to make it cool.
yeah, it's like, okay, I want to run up along the side of this building. When I get here, I'm gonna do a backflip over this thing. I want to try and stab it back because I see it's squared up with my ally here. So can I get advantage if I do that? And there's a good chance the
Acrobatics
GM
check.
will go, that's cool. Yeah, like you said, make an acrobatics check. Cool,
Yeah,
you did. Yes, you may have advantage. And even though that took longer because you had to have that conversation, you made everyone more
yeah.
engaged in it because
Well,
you're doing something cool.
and that's a good thing to mention is that just speeding up your turn doesn't need to be the goal necessarily to make combat not feel slow. It's just cutting out the time of everyone's waiting for you to think or everyone's waiting for you to roll whatever.
And the biggest no-no of all, as a player or players, and as much as I love Critical Role, this is one thing that I think they encourage bad behavior of people is crosstalk.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I
it sucks because it's a thing that adds so much time to combat and
it,
everything,
it
but it's
does.
also some of the most fun.
It can be, but I
Yeah.
say I honestly hate metagame crosstalk. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden, like you encounter a creature that maybe you encountered once before, but it's been 8 months real lifetime since you did it. And you're like,
Mhm.
wait, we encountered one of these. What was weak against something, right? It was weak. Oh yeah, it was weak against this. Oh, and it only had a movement of this, so we could. And now everybody's talking. And as a DM, I think that's where you can and should shut that down with 6 seconds, guys. A round takes 6 seconds.
Totally.
You want to use your turn to talk to your
Yeah.
allies.
See,
No, take your turn.
and I thought you were talking about a different kind of crosstalk. Cause like metagame and crosstalk, absolutely. Cut that nonsense out.
No, I don't. None of it.
No.
I hate it.
But like the like cracking a joke about something during combat crosstalk.
That's
Like
fun.
it's fun, it's funny, it can bog down things, so use it sparingly.
Yeah,
But like that's the table talk where I'm like, but jokes.
I, and I think there needs to always be a certain amount of levity with the game.
Yeah.
It's a game. It should be fun, but also make sure in combat you are one. You know your role in combat. Every
Hmm.
character has a specific role or roles that they fill, and that you're not trying to, unless it's a shared role, you're not stepping on someone else's toes. Like
Yeah.
when I played a barbarian, my job for the most part was to get into melee, soak up as much damage as I could, and then just liberally apply my great axe to whatever fools were in front of me.
Great
Ranged
axe. Apply
combat,
directly to the forehead.
yeah, ranged combat was not my job. Even when I got this really cool longbow, it wasn't my job. I only used that bow when I had no other option. But even then, I was always moving towards the action. I never moved away from it unless we were doing a full party retreat
Right.
because I didn't want to steal the thunder of our cleric or our warlock or our rogue, who, even though she did a lot of melee, a lot of her sneak attack came from range with a short bow. So I didn't want to steal their thunder, and none of them wanted to steal mine. None of them would have
Yeah.
tried to get up there and be the melee god because that was my job.
Although it would be funny to see one of them try.
Yeah, I would have, but you know, and actually, I'll give credit to a member of our party who played in your pirate game, Phoenix, where
Oh yeah.
using his true polymorph. Granted, it was used on the monk because he had almost no hit points left, but turn him into a powerful melee monster. So then that character was still able to do the same job in
Yeah.
combat, even while in a different form. And to me, that really added a lot to the game.
Absolutely. It also added a lot to the game when we left him transformed for a while
It was
because it
hilarious.
was funny. Uh,
It was. and
But
he murdered some of my creatures by goring them. And even though my creatures died, I still enjoyed it because it was fun.
so we've talked a bit on how players can speed up combat,
Yep.
and it is all the same little things, but everyone doing little things can help, kind of like fighting climate change. But
Yes,
who can fight climate change the most? Giant ass corporations, aka the DM.
that's right. So there is actually one really easy way a DM can speed combat up, and that is, um, for whatever your encounter is. This works best for pre-planned encounters.
Yep.
For those random encounters, guess what? You don't actually have to use what they rolled on that table. You can just decide whatever the hell you want because you're the
Yeah.
DM. They don't know. They can't see what you're looking at. They don't know. If you have that stuff pre-planned, you can pre-roll for initiative. And if
Yep.
you pre-roll for initiative, all you have to do when the players roll is plug them in, and it saves a shitload of time,
Yep. Uh,
especially if it's fighting multiple monsters.
yes. And that was a thing I wanted to get at. Multiple monsters in combat, running that as a DM. If you Okay, this is a thing that I've seen a lot, and it fucking annoys me. If you have multiple monsters, and they are not all acting in the same round, or like maybe just split up into a group of two, or into like two groups, the nine hells are you doing?
Do not roll initiative for every single monster. If
Oh
you
my
have
god.
a group of orcs and a group of goblins, you can roll initiative for each group. Or you could have them all act on the same turn.
Mm-hmm.
If you have, say, a powerful lich and it's two undead guardians, I would say give the lich its own initiative and give the guardians their own initiative.
But
But if you
if
give
you have, mm, mm,
if you have 7 monsters and you rolled initiative separately for all 7 monsters and you have 4 players, that means you have 11 turns to resolve per round. It's too much. It's too much.
yep, and
Don't
I will personally
do it.
reach through this computer screen and choke you out.
We will find you. We will find
It is,
you.
it is the most annoying fucking thing.
And you know
Oh my
what?
god.
DMs, we always complain that we don't get to play enough. You DM who did this, you'll get to be a player, but you have to play a purple dragon knight for the rest of your life. Has to be a purple dragon knight. That's it. Purple dragon knight.
Yep, that is a suitable punishment. That is
And
absolutely a suitable punishment.
if there's ever an errata where they fix the purple dragon knight, you got to play the archived one. You don't get to
Mm-hmm.
do the new one. No, no,
No, no, you don't get to play the new one. Absolutely
no.
not.
So I kind of hope
Mm-mm.
they never do because I don't want to stop dunking on the purple dragon knight
Right? I know. Oh
because
god,
it's terrible.
what if they update the Purple Dragon Knight and it's good? What if they update the Purple Dragon Knight and give us what a lot of people want in the class of a dragoon?
I'd play it. That's what would happen.
Uh, it'd be thematically perfect, and I'd be so mad that it'd be good.
um, I would say for
Anyway.
going back to combat, another thing for DMs. Remember how we said to those players, "Hey, know what your character can do. Have an idea what they're going to do on first rounds of combat. Hey, DMs, know what your damn monsters can do, and know what
Mm-hmm.
they would do on the first rounds of combat." Now, there's a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful book called "The Monsters Know What They're Doing," which I
I
recommend to
Oh, it's
every
so good.
dungeon master. I have a copy. I love it, and I use it regularly.
It is a
Every
brilliant,
encounter,
brilliant book.
every encounter I plan, every one, every monster I select, every one, I look them up in that book just to get some tactical ideas. And then
Mm-hmm.
I make notes on my encounter page of what those monsters might do.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you have your monsters behaving in an interesting way, you make the combat more interesting, and you also don't have to think as much as a DM.
Mm-hmm.
You don't slow it down for the turn. And again, I mentioned the Lich earlier. if the monster you're using is a lich, you've got spells all the way up to 9th level. That can be a lot to think about. Know what you're casting first. Just know, hey, in combat, my lich would open with blank. I recommend Cone of Cult. Does great
Me.
damage. It's a clone, hurts them. It's only a 5th level spell, so you get to save your big stuff. And that power word
Me.
kill, hang on to that towards the end of combat in case you need it.
Yep. Thinking about thinking about that book, like it's one of the easiest ways to speed up time as a DM is to treat your monsters like characters.
And on that point, and it mentions this in that book, not every combat has to be a fight to the death.
Mm-hmm.
You could have it where the players are clearly going to win. The monsters have been beaten down, and they're intelligent enough to know they're going to lose. Have
Run
them
away!
flee. Have them run. Have them escape. And see what your players do. Your
Mm-hmm.
players might go, cool, fight's over. Let them run. Your players might chase them, which could lead
Mm-hmm.
them into something interesting. Maybe they
Which could
stumble
lead them
across their
into a
encampment.
bigger combat.
Yeah, could lead them into a trap. So you can actually gain a lot from
Mm-hmm.
your monsters fleeing. And also, if they run, the combat's sort of over, you've sped things up. Or if it's clearly going to be a fight to the death and you can see the players have won, this is over, just say, you know what, in the interest of time, you guys wipe them out. Your players will actually appreciate you for that
Mm-hmm.
because they're not going to expend any more resources or any more hit points.
Mm-hmm.
You go, hey, you
It's
guys have
it's it's a
won.
nice trade-off that's really okay to do, because it's like,
Yeah,
hey, you're gonna save some hit points, we're all gonna save some time. You don't get to describe the cool way you kill the thing, sure, but
right.
it was a group of
Uh,
goblins.
don't do this with boss monsters because your players want
No.
that kill. But for just your average run of the mill encounter, it's
Mm-hmm.
totally okay to go, you know what? You guys are level 19. These are hill giants. There are 3 left. You mop them
They're
up.
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're just going to move on from there.
Yeah. There's one thing on that that I want to mention, because it can be very polarizing for DMs, but
Sure.
I find it to be very good for speeding up combats.
What's that?
You have the stat blocks.
Okay.
You could roll their damage, or you could take the average damage. It's very,
Yes.
very polarizing for a lot of DMs, because a lot of DMs are like, no, I like the randomness, and other DMs are like, just give me the number, I don't give a shit. Personally, I fall into the camp of usually wanting to use the average.
Sure.
If it's a special enemy, I will roll, but if it's a mob of weaker enemies, or just a random encounter on a random encounter table,
Yeah.
I'm just taking those averages.
And I couldn't agree more. When you have those very, run of the mill encounters, just take the averages. It speeds up combat.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, the only time myself as a DM where I insist on rolling is for creatures either A, with an ability to do just an epic metric ton of damage,
Yeah.
because then I want to see if luck is on my player's side.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I roll low, which happened to you guys in an encounter where
Yeah.
your warlock was not disintegrated. I will never forget this because almost every one of my D6 showed a 1.
Yep. Yep. And he still was
And
only almost
I
not
couldn't,
disintegrated by, like, what, 4 points?
yeah, he had like 4 or 5 hit points left. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it, but almost everything showed a 1. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And I like to see if luck is going to spare my players
Mhm.
sometimes. Um,
And I
and
really think that's why I have the personal rule for myself as a DM that I I will take the average for just about everything
yep,
except for bosses and big monsters.
yeah. And also, especially if something has something just stupid like 6d12 damage, that's really fun to roll.
It yep. Mhm.
It is. Yeah. You don't get
Especially
to
if you're
roll
a
enough
goblin
d12.
like me and you can just
Right.
haha.
So Yeah, I agree, and I love that you brought that up.
Hmm.
That was the next point I was going to
Yeah.
touch on, was use those averages, and use those averages, especially if you have some like lower level spellcasters that they're encountering,
Mm.
or even a mid level, and scale it onto the level of your players. But you can go, okay, I'm gonna hit Cone of Cold on you, make the save, cool. Those who failed take this. Those who succeeded take this.
Yep. And you'll find with a lot of those spells that when the average is listed out, the average almost always is even, so that it's
Yep,
real easy to cut in half when someone
sure
passes the
is,
save.
sure is, and
And that
frankly,
saves you math time.
Another good reason to use those averages is they're more than half damage always.
Yep.
You're going to
So,
do
you
respectable
know,
damage.
there's that.
Yeah,
Like if you're playing Tomb of Annihilation, you're gonna kill your players with that.
you are. You are. If you're playing Tomb of Annihilation, you're going to kill at least one of your players.
Absolutely.
It's a guarantee. And
But
they should
another
know that
thing,
going
yeah.
in. But
One
yeah,
thing
don't be afraid of the averages. Don't be
often,
afraid. It's there
yeah,
for a reason.
don't be afraid to use the tools that are available for you. Like you don't need to
Thank
make
you.
everything up. You don't. You
No.
can just use things as written. They've been written and playtested for a goddamn reason.
Yes. They went through play
Like,
testing, people.
and this is for every system,
Yes.
regardless of which tabletop you're playing, if they have averages listed out for the damage or not. Like, just use what's written most of the time. You really don't need to homebrew everything.
And also, here's the thing. Um, I don't care how good you are. With some rare exceptions, this is not to throw shade on anybody. I'm a dungeon master also. I'm working on my own homebrew world, and I understand this for myself. What these game designers and playtesters have come up with, it's probably better than what you could come
Mm-hmm.
up with on your own for the
Oh yeah.
same thing. I'm not changing the mechanics for my homebrew world because I can't come up with a better system of mechanics. And this whole world I'm creating, I'm taking them from legends and stories and video games and movies. And
Mm-hmm.
there'll be stuff that as my players go through it, they're going to go, wait a minute, this is Final Fantasy VII, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, that's where I got it
You're right.
from.
Now roll initiative.
Yeah. And that's okay
Oh fuck.
because,
Rolling initiative.
yes,
Sorry, my brain. So for rolling initiative, it is a thing that can take unnecessary amounts of time for some reason. Um,
sure can.
and I find I'm sorry to completely break off of that
No, no, no.
thought, but if I don't, I will forget to say this. Um, there are some DMs around that try to do their best to take nothing from Critical Role, and I get it. Sure, whatever. But how they do initiative is so clean and so efficient. Fucking steal that.
Do what Mercer does. I watched one episode of Critical Role with combat, and I went, I'm doing it like that,
Mm-hmm.
asking 25 to 20, 20 to 15, 50, and just go down by fives because you are now having only a few people answer you at a time. Because I know I've done the roll for initiative going around the table. Okay, what'd you get? 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 And now I'm trying to move and see where everyone
But
got.
yeah, and it
Pain in
takes
the
it
ass.
takes time that no one needs to spend
Yeah.
for you to like rearrange when you could just ask in order
Yep.
in those tiers. Like do
Also,
that. Ugh.
for initiative, I'm going to piggyback on that. The next thing, have some sort of initiative tracker.
Oh, absolutely.
If
Like
if you could have a physical one, like if you're playing in person, which most of us haven't been
mhm.
doing for quite some time, and I can't. I have an in-person D&D session this Tuesday. I'm so excited because
That's
we're
so
all
nice.
vaccinated and we can get
Uh
together, play, and I'm probably gonna cry when it happens. But
you're definitely gonna cry. I know you.
yeah, no, it's me. I get weepy real easy. But having a physical initiative tracker is great for two reasons. One, you as the DM are less likely to lose your place than if it's just on this notepad with all these other notes you're trying to remember. And
Mm-hmm.
two, your players can see whose turn it is next. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to remind them, okay, you're on deck. Because
Yep.
I have sympathy for the player who got to their turn and they go, shit, I forgot I was after that person. Give me a sec.
Mm-hmm.
They got caught off guard. They may have been paying attention. And there's a good chance their face was buried in the player's handbook looking at their spells, because in my experience, it's always a spellcaster who forgot who it was they went after. Again, I don't blame them for that.
Yep. Because spells take a lot of wrangling and a lot
And
of mental
also,
preparedness.
yeah, and also, if all they heard was the order stuff, was done in the initiative rank, they don't know where your monsters landed. They have no
Also,
idea.
yes.
So if the player before them got a 23 and they got a 16 and there are no monsters in between, there's a good chance they're
Mm-hmm.
going, okay, I've got at least one monster in between. I'll be fine. Wait,
Yep.
I'm next. So physical initiative
A
trackers
a
are
very
great.
a very simple craft that I saw online that's super easy to make, and it's kind of adorable if you do it up a little extra. It's an initiative tree.
I've seen those.
You
I love
just
them.
it's so simple because it's just a little bit of sturdy wire that
Yep.
you can bend around a little bit if you want to make it look more tree like,
Yep.
and then some kind of clip,
Yep.
and then note cards.
Yeah.
It's so simple,
The
and
other
if you crafty it up a little bit, it's fucking adorable.
the other version of that I've seen, which is so simple, but it works great, is you have a block of wood, you have a sticky thing sticking straight up out of it, and you use
Mm-hmm.
clothespins. You write character names on it.
Yeah.
Clothespins.
Oh yeah.
Done.
Love that.
You can see. So
Like
yeah,
like
initiative
we said
trackers.
to
Yeah.
Yeah, like we said about players and calculators. Use tools.
Yeah.
Use them.
And if you have some coin to spend, go on Etsy or any
Mm-hmm.
sort of place like that and look up independent artists that are making and selling initiative trackers. You can find some really
Oh,
cool stuff.
you can find gorgeous ones.
Yeah. Support an independent artist with a initiative tracker that's within your budget. Buy
Mm-hmm.
it, use it, love it, and you've given an artist some money. Everybody
Yep.
wins.
You've given an artist some grocery money.
Yeah.
You've given yourself a great tool. You've
Yeah.
sped
And
up
a fun
combat for
toy.
yourself and your players. Like, everybody wins in that situation.
Yeah. I think one of the greatest things happening with how popular D&D 5e has become is all these artists creating things
Oh,
for
yeah.
the game. Buy those things. And also, if you can, buy your books from your local shop.
Yes.
Shop local. I won't lie, I've been guilty of it, of using the big bad Amazon to get it the day it comes out.
I mean, who doesn't?
If you can, try and buy it from a local shop. Yes, it costs more. However, they need that money way more than Amazon does.
Absolutely.
Which is why I
Uh,
haven't bought my copy of Van Richten's yet, because I'm going to go buy it at Outsider.
oh, see, I'm going to try and hit up Phoenix on the Hill and see if they've
Yeah,
got it.
it's a good shop.
We'll see. Also, shout out to those shops. We love
Hell
them.
yeah.
Uh, God, where were we at? Right.
We were kind of just
Using
wrapping up about
tools.
how to
Uh,
keep it, how to keep it moving. Yeah, the tools that are out there. As a DM, I think one of the other tool that's out there, it's more a statement from the Dungeon Master's Guide. I believe it's in the Player's Handbook too, where it simply says the DM has final say on everything. And
mhm.
what I mean with that is, let's say it's a spell effect or a breath weapon effect. Those radius circles or spheres, cones, cylinders
Mhm.
in reverse gravity. And a player is trying to figure out where exactly does it land, and they're trying to measure to the last micrometer. Um, make a ruling, make a simple
Mhm.
ruling, and decide. If a player asks, hey, can I throw a fireball up into the corner of this room? And because of the radius, can I hit it in a spot where it will arc outwards, hit these enemies, but not hit my ally? Instead of getting out a string and measuring everything to the last inch, if
Yeah,
it's
just make the
plausible,
call.
yeah, I go, if it's plausible, do one of two things. Go, I'll allow it, or no, like make that pick, or go, you know what? Make an Arcana check and let them know you're casting the spell, but the Arcana check will decide if your ally gets caught in it or not.
Mm-hmm.
It puts the stakes in the hands of the dice. It's interesting, and you get to move along. Don't
Yeah.
take all the time to measure every last thing to the last
This,
millimeter.
yeah, this isn't Warhammer.
Yeah,
You don't need to be that precise. You really
you
don't.
don't. You don't, because it doesn't add anything to the game if you're being that precise. And
Mm-hmm.
also with that, just be consistent. Be
I mean,
consistent.
that said, if you have the cool like rings and whatnot, oh, use them all day, every day.
Yeah, use those templates, and sometimes just use that template to go like, yep, look, this dragon's breath weapon is hitting you. And honestly, if you have that player who's continually trying to debate it, you can say, look, I made the ruling. It hits you. Roll a dexterity saving throw.
Yeah.
It's that
If
simple.
you've yeah, if you've got someone that's gonna be infuriating like that, you don't need to play with that person anymore.
You don't. And that I think may be the best final lesson to put in here. If you have somebody at your table, or you have a DM who is just bad, and by bad I mean makes the game less fun for everyone else. I don't mean doesn't know the rules and needs reminding
Mm-hmm.
because they're new. Those people you should be very kind to and
Yes.
help them along. If someone has brand new to D&D and they love magic and they decided they were going to play a wizard and they find it's really overwhelming because there's all
Help
these
them
spells,
learn.
hell yeah, help them out. Help them out. Yeah, and hit them up outside of sessions and go, hey, let's
Yeah.
talk about your spells. I wanna see, what you know, what you like, and give them assistance. But if it's somebody who's just being a complete dick brain and making it less fun for everyone else, even if it's the DM, stop playing at the same table as them. And that can be jarring for players to hear because they go, well,
Mm-hmm.
DMs can be hard to find. And I will say this as someone who thought he could never DM, don't be afraid to be that person to say to the other people at your table, you know what? I'm going to run such and such game. Let's play.
Yep.
They will appreciate you for doing it. And hopefully, at least one of them will run something where you don't have to become a forever DM, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe you'll be like me and you'll find, wow, I love this, and it's super rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think every player needs to DM at least once? No,
Absolutely
I
not.
don't, because some people just don't want to. But if you're even moderately curious, I say try it. It's possibly more fun than being a player because you get more
Mm-hmm.
things to play with than the players do. You get
You
all
sure
your
do.
NPCs and your monsters. It's great.
But hopefully, with all those things to play with, you don't slow up production. And that's
Don't
really what I hope that you get from this, that you get from watching this episode, is don't slow up production.
keep it moving, man. Keep
Mm-hmm.
it moving.
And even if, and I know that we threw out a number of different things to give a shot, and it may be hard to remember all of the different ones at once. Pick one,
Yeah,
try it
I would
until it
say
gets ingrained in your normal playing, and then add another one.
if you're a DM and you're going to take one thing from this, just one, take those average damages that are on those
Mm-hmm.
monster stat blocks. Just
Oh
try it.
yeah, give it a
Just
shot because you'll
try it.
find that it speeds up so much.
And not just that,
Uh,
when a player gets hit, if they realize this thing does 7 damage every time, measure it, and your player will sort of be like, okay, I took 7 damage. Okay, like
mm-hmm.
they'll be on top of it.
Quick players will be able to be on top of it, and they'll help you speed up things,
They will. It'll be
which is
great.
always nice.
And if you're a
Uh,
player, read your damn spells.
mm-hmm.
Read
Read
your
your
spell.
spells. Like, oh, there was one thing that I forgot to mention.
That?
Is that as a player, if you don't have the money to go get physical spell cards, which I mean they cost, in my opinion, more than they should, except
They
for
do.
the cool art. Just note cards, dude.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, we're coming up close to time.
We are.
So I want to thank everybody that's been in the chat, that's been here with us watching live, that watches us on YouTube in the future, on Twitch for the next, like, 2 weeks that the VOD is still up on there.
You guys are
Uh,
freaking awesome. Like, legit.
like, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. Please do remember to do all the things that I hate to say to do, but
I'll
we
say
want
it for
Internet
you.
Daddy's money.
Yeah, do the liking, do the subscribing, YouTube, Twitch, follow our Instagram, follow our Twitter. There's hardly anything on those. If you engage with them, maybe you'll get more. Maybe we'll get more. Thing.
But yeah, do the things I hate to say. Uh,
Yeah.
and remember that we are always, assuming that internet works, here on Thursdays, from 5:30 to 6:30 ish.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Talking about things. We're trying to do our one shots once a month. Our next one is when?
Saturday, June 5th, 5 p.m.
That's right.
Oops, all bards.
I hope that somebody sends our Instagram or our Facebook page a picture of them eating oops all berries while they watch. That'd be a real treat for me.
Or you can send a box of oops all crunch berries directly to me, and I will eat them because I love crunch berries.
We should get a show PO box.
We should actually.
That's for future us. We can plan.
It is.
Anyway, yes, that's for planning meetings that we never have.
We ever start making money off this, we will have a show PO box.
Absolutely. Anyway, thank you all for watching. See you next week. And what do we always say, Bjorn?
Do something nice for yourself this weekend.